All right, welcome back. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. I'm John Tobacco. And the big fake news, if you ask me this week, and maybe it's not fake news, I'm sure Russia has some people near the border that want to encourage, these Taliban to go take out some U.S. If anybody thinks we're not at war in all sorts of ways with Russia, you're out of your mind. So the fact that everyone's going crazy, that there was a uncorroborated intelligence report that Russia was giving bounties to Taliban to kill U.S., it shouldn't shock anyone who understands the ways of the world. And someone who understands the ways of the world way better than us is Justin Sheffield. He's a former warfare operator of the United States Naval Special Warfare Development Group, or AKA SEAL Team 6, author of Mob 6, a SEAL Team 6 operator's battle in the fight for good over evil. Justin, thanks for giving us a few minutes today. Really appreciate it. God bless you. Thank you for your service, protecting our freedoms and liberties. We're under attack everywhere. But what do you have to say about this report that Russia is offering bounties on U.S. troops in Afghanistan?
Thank you for having me. So this is, you just nailed it. This is nothing new. We've been over there, longest war in our history, and the Taliban have always been paid off by somebody. Certainly nothing new with Russia, although I don't know how valid these claims are. But anyone going over there in our U.S. military needs to be aware that the Taliban, they're there to kill you, and they want to kill you, and we don't need to have peace talks with these people.
Well, yeah, I join you in that immensely, but you know a heck of a lot more than I do about it. But if I remember, Russia was in a war with Afghanistan, and I think that was one of their longest wars ever, and they kind of lost that one. They had to slink out of Afghanistan. Would you imagine that sometime in the history of America, when Russia was in there fighting in Afghanistan, that some U.S. special operators were by the border trying to encourage the opposition to kill some Russians?
Absolutely. And we're talking about, back in the 80s, I guess, so Northern Alliance. But this is still a common enemy, with the Taliban. Taliban has been a common enemy. So the people that we helped were actually fighting the Taliban when we went back.
Right.
So two different groups of people. You have Islamic extremism, which is Taliban, Al Qaeda, and these terrorist groups, and then you have groups over there that are actually really good people, and they want to get their country back and get out of Sharia law.
So you're the author of SEAL Team 6, an operator's battle. SEAL Team 6 operators battles in the fight for good over evil. Are there any parallels of things you've seen on the battlefield against operators like the Taliban and ISIS? Are there any parallels you see to what these anarchists are doing in cities around the United States?
Great question. So I think that's what we need to be very, very careful of. Going all over the world, the lawlessness, it just ensues after these terrorist groups take over, and they move in, they take over a place. They do horrible things to women and children, horrible things to men. And that's exactly what we're seeing in this country right now. We need to band together and, get behind our police officers and men and women that are out there enforcing the law. We have to have a country with laws.
One of my relatives was a special operator for the U.S. He was in Egypt. His group was protecting the pyramids at one point when there was some credible threats of attacks on U.S. tourists. He was in Iraq where they were rebuilding schools. And he tells me that the tactics, these autonomous zones and taking over businesses and fighting, harming people and looting and fires. These are the same fragmented fear tactics that ISIS used when they started to build the caliphate. Take over a small village, humiliate the men, rape the women, burn the schools, and take over their stores and businesses. That's what I feel like these Antifites are doing here in America.
Yes, sir. It's completely based on fear. That's how they control. they're pushing fear on people right now. I mean, you see Americans responding. I think some of the things going on right now is quite bizarre. I need people to need to know that you do not have to be in fear, and you don't have to bow down to any of these groups. We're Americans. This is red, white, and blue, and we are one nation under God. And we need to come together, especially right now. We're going into Independence Day. It's a pretty serious time, and I think people need to wake up a little bit.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Your book talks about, all the strategies you guys have had in the past in protecting us, and even proactively going out there and taking out threats. Apparently, not many have served more combat operations than you, like 1,000, only maybe a handful of folks in the world. One of my good buddies, I grew up with him. His son James Munson is just got out of Annapolis, and he's commissioned now. And I asked him, I said, all this crap going on in America, and Trump's always under attack. He's a young man, 23, 22, 23 years old. How did the younger guys in the military really feel about Trump? And he said, JT, I got to tell you, they love the guy. As much as the media tells you this, that, and the other thing, the military has never been so united behind a guy. Do you feel that the military knows he has their back right now?
I really do. I have a pretty cool role now. I run a foundation for veterans that are getting out, but it keeps me really in tune with a lot of our brothers and sisters that are still in. And I can tell you that they do know that they feel like they have a commander-in-chief who truly supports this military.
I feel like as much as the president is under attack, I feel like he's actually doing what the Constitution says. In some of these places, he wants to order the National Guard in, but that's the way our government works. The governor controls the state militia until the federal government claims it. So I actually think the president is showing a tremendous amount of restraint, leaving it in governor's hands. I'm not saying it's great because it's happening, but if he takes one more step and asks the great men and women of our fighting forces to go in there and overrule the government, then he may actually create anarchy. So as much as they say he's crazy, I feel he's actually showing great restraint right now.
Yes, sir. I agree with you on that. People need to realize, too, that the U.S. military, we take an oath to protect the American people at all costs, whether it's from foreign or domestic terrorism. So the military is never going to turn on civilians. If they're ever used, and he is showing great restraint, but if they're ever used, it will be to do the exact same thing we do overseas, and that's rid terrorism, which we have going on right now, I believe.
So in our final couple of minutes here, I always like to get our audience some great little snippet to get in a moment or learn something. But I know in the book you talk about this great raid that you had where you actually saved a hostage and just what goes through your head, like when you go into such an operation, the possibility exists that you could be dead. How do you keep it?
Great question. That outfit that I was a part of, we were constantly training. Our number one mission was hostage rescue, and I feel like it's a blessing that I got to be a part of one. The whole team performed amazingly. I will give credit to the Lord here. I believe that he was absolutely present, as I always think he was and is. And so we had a little extra help. But I would say, getting prepared for that, you have to accept death. You have to. I told all my guys, you're going to accept rounds. This is hostage rescue. Very different than going in combat against the Taliban, per se. So, it doesn't matter white, black, female, male, gay, straight, whatever they are, Muslim, Christian, we're going to save them. So that's what you're dealing with at SEAL Team 6.
Yeah, and I would imagine when the call comes in, hey, we have a hostage situation, the commander doesn't say, well, what color is the person or what sex is the person. I want to encourage our audience, please go out there, go on Amazon, check out Mob 6, and it's Mob, Roman numeral VI, Mob 6, a SEAL Team 6 operators battles in the fight for good over evil. And my brother, thank you so much. We need more men like you because evil is trying to seep into corroding our society. And I hope our good men of our armed forces and women don't ever have to take to the streets of our own country, but I'm sure scared it may happen. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you, and God bless you, man. Thank you.
God bless you, too. That's Justin Sheffield, former SEAL Team 6 operator and a guy who's put his life on the line hundreds of times in combat missions for us. We'll take a quick break, come back with more Liquid Lunch for you right after this.